y'all, it's Hope here at Crafty Hope and welcome. I decided to show y'all a few more of my hashtag mini assemblage 100 for the 100-day project. I'm doing two different 100-day projects. This is one of them. The other one I'm making just drawing faces every day. That was something simple and easy that I kind of wanted to work on. But these mini assemblages, last year I did larger assemblages and decided that this year I wanted to do something smaller than maybe $1 kind of in general. And I'm just pulling together things that I like. I decided a week or two ago that if each and every one of them has something rusty, has something paper, has something sewn, that's okay. So as you can see, I've got a little piece of it's some newspaper that got gold spray paint on it. I used it underneath something I was spray painting, and so I just tore that down. You can see I'm going ahead and inking the edges of that with some black distress ink. And then I've got a piece of like, what do you call that? It's like a thick canvas type fabric. And there's some painty dictionary paper and some rusty novel paper that I'm just kind of putting on there. I wanted to grunge up that gold paper a little bit, and the inking of the edges didn't really do it. So I brought in a little Payne's Gray acrylic ink and thought, okay, well, we'll see if I can get this to work on it. But y'all, that enamel, that spray paint, that ink was not soaking in at all. So I just wiped it off. And in doing so, it kind of hit me. I was like, well, what else can I do to distress this? So yeah, I'm going to just pick it up and crumple the whole thing. Yep. Just like that. Get some nice little crinkles in it. And that worked well enough for me. I guess I could have gone back in again with that ink to see if it got into any of the crinkles, but I wasn't super concerned. And I stepped away for a second to find something else rusty I could put in it and found a nail. So I was like, okay, I'm going to add that. Let me go ahead and add a little more gold to the top of this. So I've got my gold acrylic ink here and a fan brush. And that's a wet fan brush. And I'm going to splatter some of that gold ink onto that piece of fabric just to get the gold kind of elsewhere in this. And then we'll start stacking it all up. I think I'm just going to use my Uhu glue stick probably to start putting some of this together. We'll maybe see it. Now these assemblages for me are just kind of a learning process. Some of them have gotten framed, but for the most part, they're just kind of for me to figure out what it is I like, what draws my eye, what materials and techniques am I enjoying. And like I said, I'm really enjoying like a piece of fabric, something rusty, some embroidery floss, maybe a button. It's kind of I'm grabbing for the same things over and over again. Sometimes something botanical, and these are a lot of the things I've collected anyway, so that works for me. Alright, so I've got a little bit of Fabri-Tac I added in there to get the fabric down, but then I'll grab the Uhu to get that little scrap of rust dyed there. And I'll put my, my rusty nail there. Now I've brought in a bit of embroidery floss and kind of an off-white, and I am going to stitch that nail to that little stack there of everything. And this is what's going to secure the nail in place. Sometimes I might bring in another adhesive, maybe an E6000 for something like that, but because that is so thin, I decided it was just easier if I just sewed it straight on there. And so for most of this, I believe I'm pre-punching the holes, so that I get that first hole where I want it. And I'm just putting 3 stitches over the top of this, and I'm gonna look at this for a while, y'all. I don't think do I take off? I don't think I take my thread off. Maybe I do. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and tie it off, make a knot here on the back of this little stack here and trim it, and then flip it over. And it could be done there. It really could. I'm looking at it thinking, okay, I suppose that can be done. But there was something about that big X there kind of in the center of that was throwing me, that I felt I needed to kind of push that back a little. So I pull out this button and I put it in there, and it's okay, but it's a little too shiny. So I try another little button, still too shiny. So I'll put that little container up and I'll go grab a jar here I've got of mother of pearl buttons, and I'll start going through those. And those are a little less shiny and I'm liking that. But I'm going to pull out several of these and play with this for a minute. Look at that. And, I'm really liking that it breaks up that X a bit. And Yeah, so for a minute I was like, no, I don't need that. I'll find something else I can put in the middle. And so I'm like, okay, maybe some fabric, maybe, yeah, there, maybe that. I don't know. I'm leaving this in here a little bit so you can see that some of this is not just me stacking it. Sometimes it is just stacking stuff but there is a little bit of thought and futzing and all of that. So I found this button that was chipped, and I thought, I'm not going to put that in anything else. I could put that in one of these assemblages. So I zoomed in a little bit so you could see I'm pushing it a little over next to that piece of paper so there's less of a gap of that black there. And that felt right to me. So I'll pull out that same thread again, and I'm going to go this time through the front, and I'm sorry I'm off screen, and then through the back of this there. Zooming in always does this, and I'll do it again. So back through the front and then around through the back. And I'm making sure I leave a nice little tail there. When I come back through the front, I'm going to go ahead and take my thread off my needle. And some of that thread was a little fiddly. There was something that had, I think, from the tail had gone back around and through, but that's okay. And I'm going to tie a double knot here. Maybe I did leave the needle on, but I'm going to tie a double knot here to secure that. So that is also not glued. It is stitched on. And I'm bringing in some little scissors to trim off. And I love with buttons to leave a little bit of a frayed edge on the front of this. It just adds an additional level of texture. And with that, this one is done. Oh, no, it's not. I decided I need a little more black elsewhere on this. So I've got my Stabilo All pencil, and I'm going to make a couple of X's on it and then activate them with water. And that's just going to bring, like I said, I kind of wanted something dark and grungy on that gold. And because it's an all pencil, it marks on all things. So it went straight onto that enameled spray paint. And then that'll be it. I'm going to give you a couple looks at this completed one, and we will move on. This was number 48 of my 100-day projects, and then the next one's going to be number 50. All right, so number 50, I am starting with it. Y'all, this is a coffee filter from an AeroPress coffee machine thing. It's something my husband uses for his half calf decaf coffee, because I need a whole pot of my caffeine coffee. So he that happened to be sitting out, and I was like, I wonder if I can do something with that. So I took that strip of eco-dyed fabric and ran it through the sewing machine just to stick it onto that coffee filter. And then I have this little piece of wood that's painted with some black gesso on it. If you'll remember, that was the base for my little mossy fairy house thing that I did. I'll put a link in the upper right to that if you want to see it. But it was supposed to be glued on the bottom. I didn't glue it on so I could put a tea light in that little house. And I decided gesso is not supposed to be your top coat of anything, so I wanted to add something else to it. So I've got a little bit of Payne's Gray acrylic paint there, and I watered it down just a little bit. And because this particular acrylic paint gets super shiny, so I have found that with adding a little bit of water to it, it's not as shiny. So I'm painting the top and all the edges of this just so that, yeah, because the edges were all white. Yeah, I didn't want that. All right, and then I will dry this real quick. And then what am I going to do? I'm bringing in some more of that acrylic gold ink. This one's my mostly empty one that I'm trying to use up, so it really is only getting used for like splatters and stuff. So I've got that fan brush again and splattering with my gold. It is a favorite technique. And again, I will dry this. And then I've got my little my whatchamacallit, my coffee filter and fabric ruffle there, and that looks a lot like a moon to me, y'all. I don't know, I was feeling very moony with it, so there's gonna be quite a bit of futzing with this. You'll see here in just a second. I could have absolutely just left this the way it is. I was really kind of loving that like moon shape on that black background, but I wanted it to have more assemblage feel to it and have more things brought together. I mean, it is assemblage. There's a coffee filter, there's fabric, there's some kind of a wood scrap. It's assemblage, but it needed more texture. So I've got a bit of some, oh, what do you call it? Dictionary paper, and I've got just the very little edge of it. I do love dictionary paper. And I kind of wanted to slip it underneath that little bit of that fabric ruffle I've got going on there. So I'm trying to use like a key card to lift up the ruffle and get it under there. That didn't really work, not as well as I had hoped. So I'm just using my fingers and use my Uhu glue stick, and that gives a little bit more flexibility for me to move it around just a tiny bit more working time. And sorry, y'all, if I keep clearing my throat. I'm a little froggy this morning. And I'm looking for something else I can add to this. There's a bit of a number. I've really been drawn to adding numbers to things like page numbers on things that I find. So there was a little bit of a page number there. I don't even remember what number it said on there. It was like 27, 28, I think. Maybe. You'll see in the end. And then oh, maybe this is where it says 28. That's where it says. I don't know what that other one said. I think it was just part of a word, maybe. But this says 28, which I thought was funny because that means 4 weeks. So 7 days in a week, 4 weeks. And then the next word I'll end up finding says weekly. And I'll end up gluing that down as well, I think. I'm trying to decide what else I need on here. Looking at it, with these, some of them come together like snap, boom, done. And some of them I put a little more thought and try to get a little more going with it. So there's that little piece of paper that says weekly on it, and I will slip that again kind of up underneath. I didn't want to hide it completely, so I'll pull it back out. Like I said, that Uhu gives me a little bit of working time, so if I need to move something real fast, I can. And then I decided that I needed more texture behind that wood, that it was feeling too blocky, I guess, and that lace would be really nice. So I've got this bit of, I don't even know what this is. It's some antique or vintage fabric that I picked up, and I thought it was kind of perfect with that kind of yellowed effect of it, and it would be nice just kind of peeking off the back. So, and then for an additional element, I've got my little bucket of rusty safety pins. I try to keep those all together so I don't reach into something and get poked by a rusty safety pin, because I don't want to have to go get my tetanus shot. So I tried to poke it through the fabric and the coffee filter, but once they're rusted, they get real brittle. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a needle of some kind, pre-poke a hole in one side, and then poke it on the other so that I can get the tip of my safety pin through this. And yeah, and then I will let it attach and sit like that. Now, once that was done, I wanted, a little more texture on things. So I'm gonna, grab a needle and some thread, because that's what I do. I do love my stitches and my knots and all of that. So I've got this brown thread. I think is it already on a needle? No, I'm going to put it on a needle. I may go ahead and skip ahead for y'all so you don't have to watch me thread and knot that needle. And I decided to start by going right by the top of that safety pin so I can stitch it down just in one spot so it's not flopping around. And I'm making French knots. It is one of my favorite things to do. If you go look at my Instagram, a lot of these mini assemblages have been finished with French knots. And I just like that little bit of texture. It adds that little bit of floral femininity to it. Some of the textural elements it adds. So I just, they're just kind of perfect little stitches. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I've got 2 or 3 books on embroidery stitches, and I need to break those out and maybe learn a few more. If you've got any suggestions of stitches I should look up, let me know. But for now, I'm pretty happy with my little X's and French knots that I do over and over again. All right, so if you don't know about French knots, it's pretty simple. You bring your needle up through your surface, and then you wrap your thread a couple times around your needle between, at least once, but the more wraps you have, the thicker your knot will be. So up, and then wrap it one, and say I just did one there, and then you go back in through your surface and kind of hold that wrap in place. When you go back through, always make sure it's in a different spot than you came up in. Otherwise, you'll just be pulling that knot through. And then that's it. So it does take some practice to kind of get a French knot down, and not mine are not perfect every time I do them. So just keep at it if you're working on this. So I'm tying this off a little bit. First, yep, just like that. And what I like to do when I have stitching, especially on the back of paper, is to go ahead and tape it down. I just use some masking tape to make sure it's secure and it is going to stay down. And now I will put some Fabri-Tac on the back of my wood panel and just stick that vintage lace there, kind of getting it where I want it. And I will do the same thing with my little stitched bundle here. Fabri-Tac on it. And I did that just on the coffee filter first, and then I'm kind of laying out that strip that's going across. Yeah, making sure everything's where I want it. I'll look where that strip is going, and then put it across the board as well, just to make sure that stays in place. And y'all, this is such a cute little assemblage. I really love it. All right, I will give y'all a few looks at this as well. And now we are on to the last one, which is a super simple one, which is number 52 from my mini assemblages. And you see I've got these little buttons there. Those will come in later, along with that piece of fabric. Actually will be my next set of videos. I'll have that in there. But for now, I've got this other little piece of fabric, and that little component there, y'all, is part of like a necklace chain that I don't really like in my jewelry. But I was going through my chains and had found that single link, and was like, I need to do something with this. This looks like a little label thing that would be on like a drawer or a container or something, and that's what I'm going to make it be. So I decided to find a word to kind of highlight behind it. And this large print just wasn't working. I was trying to sort through this folder of different pages I had and find something that would work, and nothing just felt right. So I'm sorting and looking. And like I said, some of this, comes pretty easy. Some of it does not. And I'll finally go get, just a whole book and find a word in it. And I end up finding the word imagine, which was kind of perfect. I had seen that in the large print book, but it just was too big with that large print. So this smaller print novel works great. Now I've got that fabric to back it, and I'm going to try using some acrylic matte medium. Yeah, I couldn't figure out what adhesive I wanted for this. So I'm going to try this acrylic matte medium at first, and it's too thin, I think, and it doesn't go, I don't know, it never really sticks on the fabric. So yeah, it keeps just slipping, and I'll end up using my Fabri-Tac here to get it to glue down. So yeah, adhesives are always just a booger. The whole thing with my assemblages, and I think I said in the last video, is that it's a lot of just sticking stuff together. You're assembling things, and it's gathering and adhering them together. All right, so now I'm going to get that frame around it, and for it, because it is metal, I'll use my E6000, and I will be as careful as I can not to put too much glue on there, because E6000 will get kind of shiny around things. It's clear, but it's shiny. And a lot of times I don't want a super big shine on things. I wanted to back the fabric with something a little bit darker, and I looked around and I found this piece of, it is a Citrus Solve National Geographic magazine. If you haven't seen that technique, Citrus Solve is a cleaning product with a lot of citrus oil in it, and apparently you can put it on some magazines, and National Geographic's in particular. The ink kind of runs and does really cool things. So I decided to use that piece of that was in my stash, just to kind of back this. Like I said, I just wanted some kind of contrast to the fabric. And I used my Fabri-Tac to glue that on there. And then from there, y'all, all this really needs is some stitching. I'm going to stitch through the little loops on either end of that label type thing, that chain link, so it looks like that's how it's attached, but it also helps secure it a bit more. I do pre-poke my hole here a little bit. I'm having trouble finding it. And I was going to go off to the right side, like out from the angle of it. But when I was having trouble finding it there, I kept poking a hole like above it. And so I was like, well, that's what we're going to do. And once I get both of these edges kind of secured down, I can't help myself, but I'm going to do a couple more, I think 3 more French knots. And I really like this like bright blue-green color with this because everything else on here is so neutral that it needed a pop of something. And with that word being imagine, it needed to be kind of like dreamy. So I felt like this blue-green was kind of perfect. It was already on my desk, but you know, it works. So there's one little French knot, and I will, again, we'll pull it up through, wrap it around your needle a couple times, go back in a different spot, very close, but just not the same spot, and then pull that through. And then I'm going to do one more, and that will finish up these 3 assemblages, which are numbers 48, 50, and 52. I already know that I will probably be showing y'all 53, which is the one with those buttons, and we'll see what else. Y'all let me know. I didn't have anybody say they didn't want to see any more of these, so that's why I'm going ahead and showing them to you. But if, you know, if you're really bored with these, let me know. I really have enjoyed making them. All right, guys, if you did like this, make sure to give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and I will see y'all again very soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.